Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakadash, double honor to the apostles and elders at Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect out here preaching this gospel in sincerity and truth throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom. This your bro Matazah coming back with another video. You know, we told you that as we get closer to the end, this devil, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, was going to reveal more of these different weapons that he got, you know what I'm saying, stored in the vault, you know, as he gets more desperate in trying to establish his new world order. You know what I'm saying? He's going to bring more of these different secret weapons, you know, these classified weapons that he had stored in the vault. He's going to bring them forth, and you're going to be able to see exactly what type of weaponry that this devil possessed, you know, because we know that his blessing was the sword, you know. So before we start this video, you know, or these lessons, I actually got a few videos queued up. Before I start this, let's read a quick scripture, just real quick. And let's just grab this one. This is Revelation 6:4. And it says, "And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword." You see, and this red horse is a representation of Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, because as we know that Esau was known to be red. You know what I'm saying? The scriptures say that he came out red. So this red horse would be a representation of Esau, and it says that it was given unto him a great sword. So he would have great weaponry. You know, he would have a great arsenal. You know what I'm saying? His gift or his talent would be making weapons, you know, and that's exactly what we can see from this video right here. And as you can see from the title, it says shocking new CIA weapon used in Iran rescue. And it says, if your heart is beating, we will find you. And this new weapon that was classified, that's now unclassified, you know what I'm saying, it's called the Ghost Murmur. It says CIA just activated Ghost Murmur, a terrifying new tech that can detect your heartbeat from miles away. It says this Lockheed Martin Skunk Works quantum device just saved a downed U.S. pilot who was hiding in Iran for 2 days. No heat signature, no movement, just your beating heart. They literally found him by listening to his heartbeat through mountains and walls. You see, it says sci-fi is now reality. So that's the times that we're in. So this devil has great possession when it comes to, or he has a great talent when it comes to making weapons, you know, because that's the blessing that was given to him by Isaac, you know. So let's play this video real quick.
As an agency, the CIA possesses unique capabilities that only the president can deploy. Some of these capabilities fall under covert action authorities. And because covert means exactly that, I'm not going to be able to tell you everything that you want to know. At the president's direction, we deployed both human assets and exquisite technologies that no other intelligence service in the world possesses to a daunting challenge, comparable to hunting for a single grain of sand in the middle of a desert. This was also a race against the clock, as it was critical that we locate the downed aviator as quickly as possible, while at the same time keeping our enemies misdirected. For that reason, in addition to the human and technical assets deployed by the president to find our airmen, CIA executed a deception campaign to confuse the Iranians who were desperately hunting for our airmen. On Saturday morning, we achieved our primary objective by finding and providing confirmation that one of America's best and bravest was alive and concealed in a mountain crevice, still invisible to the enemy, but not to the CIA. That confirmation was relayed by Secretary Hegseth to the President, and the operation quickly moved to the execution phase. Following the successful exfiltration on Saturday night, our intelligence reflects that the Iranians were embarrassed and ultimately humiliated by the success of this audacious rescue mission.
You see, and now you see why the Lord is going to have to lift up a standard when Esau comes after the elect, you know, because they got all different types of technology that human eyes haven't even seen yet. And this is just one aspect of technology that's just been now brought to the open, you know what I'm saying, that's been exposed to the public, you know. And this is very advanced technology to be able to find someone just off their heartbeat from miles away. Even if it's deep underground inside of a mountain, you can locate them just off their heartbeat, you know, and find them wherever they are just off of their posts, you know. So this is very advanced technology, and Esau got different types of technology like this on different aspects, you know what I'm saying. He got invisibility cloaks and all different types of shit, but he's going to start bringing these things more to the open as they get more desperate to fulfill their agenda, you know, because they're going to have to resort to these type of weapons in order to get an advantage over these other nations, you know. And this is Esau is basically trying to copy, you know, the angels, you know, the 144,000, you know what I'm saying, because when Yahweh Shah comes back, you know, the elect are going to be transformed into basically an angelic form here on the earth, you know, and they're going to be able to possess power like this, even though, hey, they won't have to resort to using technology to be able to locate certain people wherever they are in the earth. It's just going to be, they're just going to have that ability, you know, to scan and find your spirit. You know what I'm saying? They use, you know, your heart rate and all of that, but the elect, hey, they're just going to be able to scan and locate your spirit wherever you are on the earth, you know, and know exactly who you are, know exactly what you've done. They're gonna know everything about you just by scanning your spirit, you know. And that's the power that the elect is gonna have, the 144,000, especially when they get sent out to round up these different nations and put them head first into captivity and slavery, you know, especially the elites that's gonna be hiding deep within these bunkers. We're gonna know exactly where they are, you know, wherever they are on the earth, however deep, you know what I'm saying, they bury themselves in these mountains and these rocks. The elect are going to know exactly where they are, you know. But like I said, you won't need weapons like Esau, you know what I'm saying. You're just going to have that ability as being a fucking angel on the earth, you know. So let's I got another video as well. Let's play this one.
The U.S. reportedly revealed a classified technology that finds people by detecting the heartbeat from miles away. It's called Ghost Murmur, and last week it was used for the very first time to locate the downed American pilot hiding deep inside Iran. Here's the science. Every time your heart beats, it creates a tiny electromagnetic pulse, a trillion times weaker than a standard magnet. Normal sensors can't detect that at a range. Ghost Murmur uses quantum magnetometers sensors that are built on quantum physics to pick up that signal. Then AI strips out the background noise and isolates a single human heartbeat across thousands of square miles of terrain. It's completely passive, emits nothing, can't be jammed, can't be detected. The pilot hid for 2 days while Iran searched for him. Ghost Murmur found him anyway. It's built by Lockheed's Skunk Works division, first ever use in combat behind enemy lines.
You see, it says first ever used behind enemy lines. You know, so Esau, he got a lot of things that he's getting ready to bring out, you know. And like I said, this is why the Lord is going to have to raise up a standard, you know, for the elect, especially when Esau comes after them, because he got all type of technology that can find you, you know, locate you wherever you are. You know what I'm saying? He got different technology, different ways to kill you, you know, like that example that they did over there when they kidnapped that president. You know, they had the sound weapons that was making people throw up and basically just fall out, you know, bleed out of different holes on their body. So Esau has different types of shit, man. And he's now starting to bring them forth because he's getting more desperate as they try to fulfill this New World Order agenda. As he gets more desperate, the more he's going to resort to these different weapons and things that he has in order to get an edge, you know. Let's matter of fact, I think I got a video. If you brothers ever played I think it was like Call of Duty, if y'all ever played Call of Duty, there's a certain weapon or a device that you can use in the game, and I think it's called the heartbeat sensor, and you can locate enemies that are nearby. You know, so let's play that video real quick.
Friendly drop bag headed
There's two people in this building.
Contact.
You know, I think that's pretty much it on the example that he was using as far as using that heartbeat sensor. But, you know, like we always tell you, a lot of this technology that Esau got, you can see it inside of these video games. You can see it inside these movies, you know, the different technology that he got. You know, he show you what he got before he actually use it, you know, because these are things that they've been working on. So once you seen that heartbeat sensor at the beginning, these are things that they actually have.
Friendly drop bag headed
There's two people in this building.
You see? So they know where you are just off your heartbeat. But in this game, these are people that are nearby. You can detect their heartbeat. But as you can see from that technology that they have called Ghost Murmur, you could locate people in every direction miles away. Even if you deep underground, they can still sense your heartbeat wherever you are from miles away. You see? So Esau, he's basically perfected this type of technology. You know? Let's go to a different video.
I don't know if you guys are tracking on this classified CIA technology called the Ghost Murmur that was used in order to find the F-15 Echo Strike Eagle Wizzo in Iran the other day, but this thing is nuts. Apparently it employs long-range quantum magnetometry to detect the weak electromagnetic fingerprint, which is like a biomagnetic field that's produced by a human heartbeat. The data is then paired with AI software to filter out background noise and isolate the specific signature, and apparently the underlying tech relies on advances in sensors using microscopic defects in synthetic diamonds, specifically nitrogen vacancy or NV centers, which is a real and actual rapidly advancing area of quantum sensing research. And then these defects allow highly sensitive magnetic field detection at room temperatures. So in ideal low interference conditions like a remote desert or mountains with minimal electromagnetic clutter, it can supposedly pick up a heartbeat from a very long distance. Now, the president mentioned that the CIA was able to spot the officer from around 40 miles away, so maybe that's something they used. Regardless, the CIA director John Ratcliffe had a press briefing at the White House, and he spoke of deploying exquisite technologies that no intelligence service in the world possesses and unique capabilities. I want you to give this a listen.
As an agency, the CIA possesses unique capabilities that only the president can deploy. Some of these capabilities fall under covert action authorities, and because covert means exactly that, I'm not going to be able to tell you everything that you want to know. At the president's direction, we deployed both human assets and exquisite technologies that no other intelligence service in the world possesses to a daunting challenge, comparable to hunting for a single grain of sand in the middle of a desert. This was also a race against the clock, as it was critical that we locate the downed aviator as quickly as possible, while at the same time keeping our enemies misdirected. For that reason, in addition to the human and technical assets deployed by the president to find our airmen, CIA executed a deception campaign to confuse the Iranians, who were desperately hunting for our airmen. On Saturday morning, we achieved our primary objective by finding and providing confirmation that one of America's best and bravest was alive and concealed in a mountain crevice, still invisible to the enemy, but not to the CIA. That confirmation was relayed by Secretary Hegseth to the President, and the operation quickly moved to the execution phase. Following the successful exfiltration on Saturday night, our intelligence reflects that the Iranians were embarrassed and ultimately humiliated by the success of this audacious rescue mission.
I don't know.
So let's grab another scripture real quick. And this is Genesis 27 and 39 through 40. And this is where Esau was blessed with his talent for weaponry, and the way that he would live and conquer and gain power is through the sword. So it says, and Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven from above. So Esau, he would basically have the fatness of the earth. He would possess, he would have access to all the resources and things like that. You know what I'm saying? He would have control over those things, and this is really at the height of his power. Esau would have control over these things. Now, as we are at the end now, all these different nations are coming up against Esau. He's basically losing his power. So he don't have the amount of power that he did at one point in time, where he was basically just on the top and he had all these nations bowing down to him. Those times have came and went, but now we are at the time where these nations are starting to stand up against him, and he doesn't have or possess that power that he used to have, because he's been stripped of his power now. We are at the end of his rulership. But at one point in time, Esau was the shit, but it says, and by thy sword thou shalt live. So he's still doing that now. He's still living by his sword, even though he doesn't have the same amount of power that he used to have at one point. He's still living by that sword. He's still trying to conquer and maintain his power and his rulership via the sword. And it says, by thy sword thou shalt live, and shalt serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass that when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. The point being is that, and by thy sword thou shalt live. So that was a blessing that was given to Esau by Isaac. So he would have great weaponry. He would use that weaponry to, take control of, the best parts of the earth, the resources and things like that, So, so you can see that through his weapons and the different things that he has, that this blessing, was given to him, and he's exercising that blessing, by all this different technology that he possessed, that, like I said, he's now starting to bring these things out the vote, and starting to bring them to the forefront, to where we're able to see the types of advanced technology that this devil possessed, So, let's go back here real quick.
Breaking news, the CIA just disclosed on national television that they used classified technology to find the missing American pilot in Iran by listening to his heartbeat from miles away. The tool that was just discussed on national television by the CIA is called Ghost Murmur. It was built by Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works. Ghost Murmur uses something called quantum magnetometry to detect the electromagnetic field your heart produces every time it beats. A couple hours ago, CIA claimed that every heartbeat has a specific fingerprint. That signal is incredibly faint, but Ghost Murmur, this new technology, picks it up from miles away, even through mountains, buildings, and desert terrain. Then artificial intelligence kicks in and filters out everything else. Wind, animals, vehicles, other humans, gone, until it isolates one single heartbeat. A CIA source described it like, it's like hearing a voice in a stadium, except the stadium is 1,000 square miles of desert. If your heart is beating, we will find you. This was the first time it was ever used in a real mission. And remember, the pilot that was missing, who was an American Weapons Systems officer, he was hiding in a mountain crevice at 7,000 feet, invisible to drones, too deep for thermal imaging, with hundreds of enemy soldiers hunting this guy. Ghost Murmur, this new technology, found him. SEAL Team 6 extracted him, and the U.S. destroyed over $200 million worth of its own aircraft on the ground just to make sure that this technology didn't fall into enemy hands. Now everything makes more sense. That's how valuable this tech is. That's how far ahead our technology is, and that's just what they're willing to tell us about. I think I am probably the most accurate reporter on the internet. If you go back and watch my videos on this Iran conflict, I just made a video about classified technology, and here we are, the CIA disclosing this type of information. Follow for more.
Yep, so they used the technology, and I guess after that they destroyed it. You know what I'm saying? That way they couldn't recreate it, you know, for their own benefits. You know? So let's go to a different video real quick.
So, why exactly is this considered the CIA's most powerful surveillance weapon to date? Well, it has the ability to track and lock on the single heartbeat of one person, friend, or foe from 40 miles away. On April 2026, this concept became a reality. With this classified tech, U.S. forces didn't even need a radio signal. They could locate a single man hidden in a cave from 40 miles out just by zeroing in on his heartbeat. Our 3D animators created a simplified model of this overclocked system to show how it works. It uses engineered synthetic diamonds to create a long-range quantum sensor. Strapped to a helicopter, it can detect the tiny electromagnetic pulse of a beating heart from miles away. So why use this specific technology to find the missing weapons system officer instead of the usual tech? Well, it is because infrared cameras and satellites are completely useless when your target is buried deep inside a mountain. In short, the CIA can now track your actual heartbeat. If you're in friend, this tech could be the lifeline that brings you home. But if you're the enemy, not even the caves or the desert can hide you anymore. How the U.S. deployed the CIA's secret weapon. In early April 2026, the CIA pulled the curtain back on a terrifyingly advanced piece of technology. The mission: to rescue a downed F-15 E-Strike Eagle weapons systems officer, known to the public only as Dude 44 Bravo. To find him, the U.S. military mounted highly classified heartbeat scanning technology onto Black Hawk helicopters and HC-130J Combat Kings to sweep the battlefield. Developed by Lockheed Martin's legendary Skunk Works, the system is officially based on quantum magnetometry. But in the field, it goes by a much cooler name, Ghost Murmur. This secret weapon allowed U.S. forces to find a man hiding in a cave from up to 40 miles away, simply by listening to his heartbeat. The implications are staggering. Imagine you're an enemy combatant or a fugitive hiding deep in the desert. With one sweep, this technology can pinpoint your exact location, even through solid rock. So how exactly does it work? To understand Ghost Murmur, you have to look at the physics of the human body. Every single time your heart beats, your muscles depolarize, generating a faint electromagnetic field. Normally, a doctor has to place sensors directly onto your bare chest just to read it. Ghost Murmur takes that concept and scales it up to a battlefield level using long-range quantum magnetometry. The core of the system relies on microscopic, engineered defects inside synthetic diamonds known as metrogen vacancy centers. At the quantum level, these defects are hypersensitive to even the smallest fluctuations in magnetic fields. When mounted on a helicopter, these quantum sensors cast a massive, invisible net over the landscape, registering the microscopic electromagnetic footprint of a human heart from miles away. But there is a catch. A quantum sensor is almost too good. It absorbs everything. A modern battlefield is flooded with electromagnetic noise. The Earth's natural magnetic fields, solar radiation, enemy radar, and radio chatter. If you look at the raw data, it's just pure static. To actually find the pilot, Ghost Murmur relies on heavy-duty artificial intelligence processing engine. This AI is trained to do exactly one thing: recognize the precise clinical rhythm of a human heart, the murmur. It acts as an aggressive filter, discarding mountains of background interference to isolate that single repeating signal. As one source familiar with the program put it, it's like trying to hear a single whisper in a packed stadium, except the stadium is 1,000 square miles of desert. When Dude 44 Bravo went down, he spent roughly 36 hours in hiding. You might be wondering, why not just use satellites to capture his heat signature? The answer is simple. If he's hiding deep inside a cave system, traditional cameras and thermal trackers cannot penetrate those hardened structures. So this is the perfect time to use the Ghost Murmurs in the southern Iranian desert, provided the perfect testing ground for this new tech. It's a low-clutter environment with almost zero electromagnetic interference and very few competing human biological signatures. Ghost Murmur is also entirely passive. It doesn't broadcast a signal, it simply reads the environment. The downed airman didn't have to break cover or risk radioing for help. As long as his heart was beating, he was a beacon on a CIA monitor. When the sun set and the desert temperature plummeted, search and rescue teams paired this quantum heartbeat detection with traditional thermal imaging. They locked onto his exact position, cross-referenced the data, and sent in the recovery team. The name of his program is deliberate. Murmur for the clinical rhythm of the heart. Ghost for locating an asset that had effectively disappeared. During the rescue, a lot of people were asking, why would the U.S. willingly destroy a $200 million plane? Well, the destruction of that C-130 in the Iranian desert is a stark reminder of just how unforgiving.
This is huge breaking news coming in. The U.S.-sanctioned Chinese tanker has just passes the Strait of Hormuz despite the U.S. blockade. The Chinese tanker...
And the thing is, even though Esau got all this technology, you know what I'm saying, he got all this weaponry that the world hasn't seen, he's still going to go down, and these other nations are still going to buck up and try Esau. You know what I'm saying? You got Trump over there. He's basically stationed all these different warships and things that's over there in the Strait of Hormuz to basically do his own blockade of ships that are being let through the strait. You know, and he's trying to do his own block. He's basically trying to be a pirate and take over these other ships and things like of that nature. You know what I'm saying? But China just went through like it wasn't nothing. You know, so they're not bowing down to the West. You know what I'm saying? They're not threatened by, you know, these different things that Trump is talking about that anybody that comes through, we're going to attack them or we're going to take their ship. They not worried about this shit. They getting their oil and they passing up, you know, America and daring them to do anything, you know? So, let me play this video over real quick because, you know, you got Trump over there with his ships, you know, basically making threats about any nation passing through that strait are going to get dealt with. But you have China, they just went through, you know, and the U.S. didn't do anything to them. So let's play this again real quick.
This is huge breaking news coming in. The U.S.-sanctioned Chinese tanker has just passes the Strait of Hormuz despite the U.S. blockade. The Chinese tanker Rich Starry, which was sanctioned by the United States on March 2nd in 2023, successfully passed through the Strait of Hormuz. According to Bloomberg, the Chinese tanker is testing President Trump's naval blockade. This comes after a serious warning from Chinese Defense Minister Dong Jun. He said that, "We have trade and energy agreements with Iran. We expect others not to interfere in our affairs, and the Strait of Hormuz is open to us." This is being seen as a direct message to the United States. Right now, the U.S. blockade is under action, and the situation is tense, but still Chinese tankers are passing freely through the strait. Right now, the U.S. is trying to control shipping routes, Iran is refusing to give up control, and China is stepping in to protect its interests. China depends on Iranian oil, so blocking the strait directly affects it. By making this statement, China is clearly pushing back against U.S. actions. It is now turning into a direct standoff between the U.S. and China. Make sure to follow for latest updates. This is...
Yeah, but the U.S. ain't gonna do nothing, man. You know, they're afraid of China. China has a lot of leverage over the U.S., especially, you know, just off the fact that most of the imports that come to America come from China. You know, so China has a lot of leverage over the U.S. You know, so they don't really want to fuck with China. You know, and China is allies with Russia and so on and so forth. So them interfering with China is that's just a whole nother can of worms that they don't want to open, you know? So let's grab this last scripture real quick and then we'll close it out. This is Isaiah 14:10, and it says, "And they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become as weak as we? Art thou become like unto us?" And that's what these other nations are saying to America. You know, because America was once looked at as the big dog on the block, but now these other nations are looking at them as like, hey, you become as weak as we? You know what I'm saying? How you become just like us? You know, you're on the same level as us now. So who are you to try to make demands and make threats when we can whoop your ass? You know? So that's basically what they're saying. So this is why China doesn't give a fuck about America doing a blockade. They still going through that strait and doing what they got to do to get their oil, regardless of what America is talking about. So, you know, we'll see how this play out more as time progresses. But, you know, that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and close it out and on to the next. Shalom.